Welcome back, Baroque Decay fans. We're excited to show the true face of Project Mosquito, the new game we've been working on for the last 2 years. It is called Catechesis. If you've been a fan since our beginnings, we're sure you were surprised to hear that name again. If that title doesn't sound familiar, I have a story for you. Our journey began in 2012 with a small survival horror game project designed for mobile. At that time, mobile gaming was a new platform, and we had a little bit of experience developing on Android. So we had the idea that a horror game could stand out. The game would take ideas from Resident Evil or adventure games like 5 Days a Stranger and combine them with the restraint of the RPG The Legend of Pico Hero. It would be a small, portable horror adventure in 8 bits. Simple, isn't it? Here you can see some preliminary character sketches, which would evolve and improve over the years. Although much time has passed, you can already recognize the characteristic style of our games. We started designing without a clear story, but little by little it took shape. Since our team had a long experience in the audiovisual world prior to working on video games, we understood that one of our strengths would be to develop the narrative. For this, we used as inspiration the films of David Lynch, H.P. Lovecraft-style cosmic horror works, and elements of Spanish Catholicism such as the Holy Inquisition. The development of Catechesis began. In April 2013, we were ready to release a teaser trailer. In less than a year, the game had grown exponentially, and we could no longer settle for releasing it only for mobile phones. The new Steam Greenlight system and a greater press focus on indie games made the PC market unavoidable. Throughout the following year, we kept publishing more updates about the development, showing new images, characters, and maps on a weekly basis. The project continued to grow from a small adventure to a much more ambitious story. It culminated with the release in November 2013 of a second trailer focused on the story. There, it was revealed how the protagonist, Daniel, had been invited to dinner at his girlfriend's house, Sophie. She hopes to convince him to take part in a black magic ritual to cure his father's illness. A ritual that will be performed by Sophie's mysterious neighbor, Isabel. Something goes wrong during the ritual, and Sophie is captured by Isabel. Daniel must then wander through the apartment building where all sorts of monsters now roam, and uncover the secrets of a cult called Tablism. The 2 trailers had a fantastic reception, with tens of thousands of views, being featured several times in media such as Kotaku, Polygon, or Giant Bomb. The focus of the press in the search for new indie games was a very relevant factor in that notoriety, which showed that Catechesis was a pixelated horror proposal that managed to capture the attention of the gamer looking for new experiences. At that time, IndieDB gave us the Editor's Choice Award for Best Upcoming Game. However, we were already in the 2nd year of development. New ideas were appearing every day. New weapons, new mechanics, puzzles, characters. By the time we had a complete game design and a first draft of the story, we realized that a project this size was beyond our means. It was that moment when we realized that we had fallen into the trap that any novice would fall into: the difficulty of balancing our ambitions with our resources. After several years of development, we had made very little progress in having a playable adventure from start to finish, and that goal seemed further away than ever. It was not a sustainable pace of work, so we had to make a drastic decision that we did not want to make, but it seemed necessary. It seemed unacceptable to continue with the development with no end in sight, so we made a build of the game to list everything that already worked in the game. From that, we learned that we could control the character, activate and interact with objects, carry and place candles around the map to light the way, and a basic stealth system, which was born from a bug where Daniel's character seemed to hide under tables. We were working with our own engine, and we couldn't get the combat to work, so in 2015, we started to rethink a new direction. Launching a new game, much smaller, reusing the engine, the mechanics, and some of the ideas of our initial proposal, such as the use of candles to light the way. Out of that came the Count Lucanor, our first game released in March 2016, which was a moderate success that encouraged us to continue. Although it had a modest reception in terms of sales, it gave us confidence to continue in the world of video game development thanks to the affection of our fans. After that experience and seeing the economic results, it still seemed difficult to consider a project as big as Catechesis. Therefore, we chose to expand the mechanics already seen in the Count Lucanor to a game of longer duration, but without great risks. Recovering the idea of the story taking place on different floors of a building and the use of black magic by a witch, Yuppie Psycho was born. Yuppie Psycho would be released 3 years later in April 2019. with the free expansion being released in October 2020, including maps and ideas that had been left out. The reception of the game was quite a surprise and a major success for us. Although Yuppie Psycho allowed us to better understand how to work on more ambitious and polished projects, the basic mechanics had not changed much from the Count Lucanor. The popularity of Yuppie Psycho has led many fans to know us for that, rather than the initial fame of Catechesis, a project that, by then, had been stalled for a decade. But the diehard fans didn't forget. And from time to time, they kept asking us about Catechesis and the possibility of resuming someday. Before that, we explored the possibility of switching genres after 2 relatively similar games. We got to work with a new team on a project under the codename Afterlife Pharmaceuticals. This time with a greater focus on strategy and combat. But with scheduling funding issues with that, we've had to leave it in a prototype state. It was then we saw the opportunity to revive the original idea of Catechesis. It was time to go back to the origin and take up again what we had abandoned. The problem is that in these 9 years, our way of seeing things has changed considerably. With more experience, we were able to better understand how to avoid some of the mistakes we had made in our first attempt. But it also meant completely reworking both the main story and the overall design of the game. Comparing this trailer with the 2 trailers of the original Catechesis project, we can find many differences, but also some similarities. Daniel keeps the same look, although somewhat older. We also see the hospital again with a pink-haired nurse. Daniel still carries a gun, although this one looks a bit more bloody. Our protagonist wonders if he has been a good boy, as Isabel did in the second teaser. What happens to make Daniel question this? The image of a body being affected by a greater power is another idea that seems to be at the core of both projects. And is that girl at the front desk the same Sophie from the original game? For now, we're going to leave some of these questions unanswered. But that doesn't mean that we can't dig into concrete things about the game. In this new story, we follow in the footsteps of young Daniel, a good, shy, and studious boy who lives with his grandfather in his grandfather's church. There, he serves as an altar boy for masses in honor of Taboism, a minority religion. One day, Daniel is bitten by a strange mosquito and begins to acquire extraordinary powers, but with a high price to pay. Every time he tries to help someone, a door to hell opens where he must fight every night. While in the previous adventures, the whole story seemed to take place in a few hours, the world of Catechesis has its own day and night system. It is up to the player how many days they will spend exploring the dungeons and completing his objectives. Coordinating Daniel's domestic routine with his nightly battles against demons is essential. Some activities can only take place during the day, such as going to school, studying, our job at the supermarket, or visiting the hospital, while other events only take place during the night. If combat was the biggest impediment to completing our first version of the project, it is now one of its highlights. Daniel has weapons at his disposal to fight persistent enemies, aiming his blood gun with the twin joysticks, making use of the knife at close distances, and dodging attacks by rolling on the ground. Mind you, pay close attention to both your health and your stamina levels, or you'll find yourself in trouble and having to start the game from the last altar you prayed at. While our previous 2 games required the use of stealth, Catechesis goes deeper with enemies reacting to the light of our flashlight or the sound of our footsteps, which will make these encounters much more tense and require more cunning strategies. Naturally, and as we mentioned in the previous installment of this devlog, we will once again have the music of Michael Garoad Kelly to accompany the difficult adventure that young Daniel has ahead of him. Garoad has just released an EP with 5 exclusive tracks for the game. We leave you a link in the description so you can listen to them right now. If you are interested in the particular mythology and secrets that abound in the world of Catechesis, don't worry. Little by little, in future entries of this devlog, we will be showing clues and unveiling some of those mysteries. And you may be wondering, this is all well and good, but when is the game coming out? There is no release date to announce. The development is going at a good pace, but we want to deliver a very special game, full of details that will delight our fans and will undoubtedly win the favor of new players. At this point, we can't confirm anything, but be patient and keep supporting the development. And don't forget, we are going to ask you a small favor. If you like the trailer and want to support us, it's very important that you go right now to our Steam page and hit the wishlist button. You can also hit the follow button to keep up to date with the news and follow us on social networks and Discord. There will be many surprises in the future. That's all for now. We will see you in the future with more details about the development and mechanics of Catechesis. Until then, Amen Tabal.